This episode is powered by Safety FM.
The Crucial Talks podcast with your host, Mike Sedam.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Crucial Talks podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sedam. If you could do me a quick favor, I'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and subscribe to it. That would help tremendously. Now, if you have any questions for me, you can always reach out to me by visiting www.crucialtalks.com or through LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, email, call me on the phone, whatever you need, because I'm here for you. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Now, you all know that the Crucial Talks podcast is all about understanding people. And we talk about understanding people and their behaviors as social storytellers, as social beings that can share feelings with each other through communication, through stories, through the way that we have relationships with each other. And how we see things, how we behave, and how we make decisions are all important parts of what we talk about here on the podcast. So today, I'm really excited to welcome Dolores Hirschmann to the show because she is focused on some of these same ideas, but focused on clarity in those ideas and clarity in how you make decisions. And so a lot of the work she does is so awesome because it's focused on people, how people can really get behind these great ideas and impact others around them, impact society, and just have an impact in general. So it's really great to have her on the Crucial Talks podcast. How you doing today, Dolores?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today, Mike.
No, I think it's going to be a great conversation about ideas and about people. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today as a coach, as a speaker, as a CEO, and how you're in this place now where you can help so many people really operationalize their ideas and understand where they're coming from so that they can create these better worlds and these better communities and better organizations. How did you get to this place?
Awesome. First, I'm going to say, so I live in Massachusetts. My accent is from Argentina. I've been in the U.S. for about 20 years. And it was about 8 or so years ago that I have a background in business and communications, and I was mostly a business consultant as my children kind of went into school. I have 4 kids. And I realized that I could talk strategy until people were blue in their face. I couldn't make them do it. And I couldn't make the leaders inspire their teams. So I went back to school for coaching to understand exactly what you talk about with your audience, right? To understand the human behavior and the human driver. And in doing that, I really got the bigger picture, which is we can only operate within the boundaries of our mindset and our belief system and kind of our emotional capacity. Because if you think about it, we stay within our safety zone. And as long as we stay there, we cannot maybe realize external success or let's talk about business growth because we won't dare to go beyond that boundary.
Well, and I love what you're saying there because this idea of boundaries and mindset and belief systems and emotional capacity goes right in line with how we understand human beings make decisions. They make decisions based on emotion, and their belief system allows them to make sense of the world around them. It lets them understand what behaviors are right at the time. But I love what you said because you said that human beings, we kind of put boundaries on that. And those boundaries, it sounds like, whenever I say boundary, it sounds limiting. So when you move forward with your coaching, with your business, with your education, did you see that these boundaries were limiting and now you're trying to figure out a way that we can extend those boundaries or somehow broaden them so we're better at what we do or what we're trying to accomplish in our own lives?
Yeah. So first of all, it all starts with ourselves, right? As I started exploring this internally, my own exercise of where I wanted to go, and as I went into coaching, I understood all that I had. Like, what I saw when I started coaching, I realized I had an invisible fence, like a dog. but there was an invisible fence that surrounded me and that I was playing within that space. And so one of the things that I have evolved into in my work is that most of the work that I do is with people with really big ideas. And if you have ever had a big idea, most of us have great ideas that we ignore because they feel too maybe overwhelms us or too large to tackle. But when someone commits to an idea, what happens is that the vision of what that idea can realize in the world is a great, if you want, tool to overcome your own internal boundaries, because you realize that not showing up for that idea, it's almost irresponsible when you realize if you say yes.
Well, and so what do you think is really that limiting factor? Because I think you're right. Like people will be sitting there listening to music, watching TV at work, and they'll have this epiphany, they'll have this idea, and it's probably a great idea. I mean, how many of us see this new product or this new thing on TV or on the internet that makes millions, where we're like, I thought about that thing 10 years ago. I should have done it. Right? Like, what do you think? What is that wall that we bang our heads into that keeps us from doing anything about it?
Yeah, it's the inner game. There's no other conversation. It's the inner game that who am I to pursue such an idea? Or I don't have the resources. I don't have what it takes. Self-confidence, self-trust. There's a lot of ideas that we let slip away. And I have this quirky belief system, Mike, that you may, I don't know how you're going to take it, but I think that there's like a universe of ideas. And sometimes these ideas come into our own minds. And the idea is like waiting there for us to say, yes, commit to it or not. And then if you don't commit to it, someone else will take that idea. It's like almost this kind of higher energy of idea. And I believe that that's what happens, because then one day you see something on TV or you go into a store and you look at something. It's like, oh my God, I thought about that, 10 years ago, but I didn't do anything about it, and someone else was able to grab that idea.
No, I kind of like that. I mean, we had an episode with Mark Gober. He wrote this book called An End to Upside Down Thinking about consciousness. And it sounds very similar. Like he was all about, hey, consciousness is out there, precedes people. It's he used a term of like water and how it flows, and that there's a stream, and that it's kind of like the same thing. Like I love picturing it, because you're like, look, there's all these ideas out there. They're floating around. You have this idea. It comes into your consciousness. You can either choose to do something about it or choose not to. And if you choose not to, it might just move on to somebody else. It's kind of I like the way that thought process is, because it's almost like it gets us out a little bit outside of ourselves. Like because what I hear you saying is a lot of these things that keep us from going after that idea is the self-talk. It's what's happening internally. And that's why I love this idea of something else going on around us, because it's almost like these things are floating around. If you just tell yourself to reach out and grab it, and you start taking action, now you might start gaining some momentum in the right direction and kind of overcome those things that are blocking you.
Yes, absolutely. And there's actually, you might want to write this down. There's a great book. I did not write it. It's called What Do You Do With an Idea? It's actually, Mike, it's a children's book. It's a beautiful children's book. And it's a book that I gift all my clients when we first start working with it. Because it's a book that talks about exactly this concept of when you actually commit to an idea. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of, consistency. But when you actually do that, at the end of the day, you impact the world. There's no other way to look at it. And there's nothing that starts big. Every single thing you see out there, every movement, every company, every nonprofit, it started with someone saying yes to something and consistently taking action, which kind of leads us a little bit to the tactical side of this conversation. And that, when that idea takes hold inside of you and you can't stop thinking about it, and you dare to make a move or sharing sometimes the simple thing of sharing it with a friend. Has it ever happened to you that you share a crazy idea with your friend or someone you run into, and they're like, oh my God, I know exactly who you should talk to. And then all of a sudden, there's a chain connection of serendipity or coincidences that before you know it, the idea is up and running, and it becomes, in some extent, bigger than you.
Well, and I love that. And I'm thanks for that idea for that book too, just because, we're talking all about how we can take these ideas and move forward with them. And I love the fact this book is a children's book, because really, if you think about it, like I've got an 8-year-old son, and if you watch a kid.
Oh, you should definitely.
Well, and here's the whole point. Like if you watch a kid, they have an idea, they're acting on it, right? They look at a box, they're like, hey, I'll make a fort out of that. And they just do it. For us as adults, as we get older, it seems like these conversations we have with ourselves almost have a negative impact, because I hear what you're saying about, we tell ourselves, well, who am I to do that, right? That negative self-talk, or I don't have the right resource to it, or I'm not good enough to do that, or what if I do that, I'm going to screw it up. Kids, a lot of times, they don't have that problem. And that's why I love what you just said, that, hey, anything we do, if we think of this great idea and it seems overwhelming, what I love about what you said is everything starts small. So if you think about this grand idea, it's almost like, look, if you think about it too big, you may not take that first step. But if you realize at the time that everything starts with a single step or a small step, that kind of defeats that overwhelming feeling we sometimes get. Like, take that first step.
Exactly. And I think, Mike, it's also important to note that nothing that has ever made it big was done by one human being acting alone.
And that is an awesome point, because we are social, right? We need each other.
Yeah. And it is, even though you might be the leader of a project or a company or idea, it's in the collaboration and cooperation of the world around you, whatever that might look like. It could be a team, it could be a colleague, it could be a sponsor, or whatever it is. It's in that connected space that things actually happen, and that we get to watch something that maybe we thought in our heads be realized in the world, almost as a miracle. You're a parent, I'm a parent. I think, it's a little bit of a parenting experience.
Well, yeah, and it seems like that what you do, now I'm trying to get to what you actually do, because you have all this great knowledge and background and education that clearly shows me you understand people and what is going on inside of them. But now to operationalize some of this, it sounds like, you work with a lot of different people. You work with speakers, entrepreneurs, authors, executives. You work with all these different people in all these different industries. But it seems like you start with the person. You start with the individual. Is that kind of the way you do things? But then it leads to like better business and bigger growth and higher returns on investment later on down the road. Like you yourself, when you work with people, start small. You start with that kind of like lowest common denominator, the person.
Yeah. So the way I look at my work is I look at, at the individual, right? The client, it could be a team. And I look at where they want to go. What is it that they want to achieve? And then instead of just looking at, okay, what are the most common steps that a company would take to make that happen, I will then go and look at the person or the team, and I will understand their humanity. I will understand who they are, what makes them tick, and what are the drivers. And then we will adapt the roadmap to reaching that goal to the people in that journey. Because here's the thing. We know what we need to do to grow our business. We know we need to have clear products, a value proposition that adds value to the marketplace. We need to have the whole systems of pricing and packaging and programming, however we present this to the market. And then we have to be seen. We have to raise our visibility, or call it marketing and communications, but we have to position and place ourselves in the market. That's non-negotiable. We have to do all those things. Now, what's negotiable is how we do those things. So one of the things that I love to do in any size company that I work with is like, what is the funnest, most exciting way that we can accomplish this that is aligned with the people behind this project, and therefore it will become sustainable and consistent? Because you and I know that if we're asked to do something that goes against our grain, that we're not excited about, we can keep it up by willpower, for a week, 2 weeks, a month. If we're getting paid a lot of money, we might do it for a little longer. But in the long run, we'll give it up because it doesn't fulfill us. It actually, depletes us.
Yeah, it's almost like you're fighting against the character. You're fighting against the value system. You're fighting against the belief system. So if you're fighting against something, yeah, you're right. You can do it for a little bit, but then you start bogging down. Now it's like, instead of going in a clear direction, aligned with other people, it just seems like it gets bogged down, like you're trying to run through sand or mud or something like that.
I'll give you a very clear example. I think this is going to help your audience. A couple of years ago, I had this client, and she has a line of makeup, and she works with entrepreneurs in their branding and visibility, and she's a creative, right? And so she needed to be consistent in her marketing and position herself there on a consistent way. And so she was came to me once, and she's like, Dolores, I can't do it. I'm not wired to do this. Like I can't plan ahead and do this and do that. And I said to her, okay, so what would you do for free all day long? Like, what would you want to do every single day without thinking about it twice? And she said, well, I honestly would love to be in front of an audience every single day. And I said, great. So we created a way, and now there's so many choices out there, right? So I said to her, I gave her a challenge. I said, okay, I want you to show up every morning, 9 a.m. on a Facebook Live, like if it were your TV show, and I want you to put your makeup on live TV, right, on live Facebook Live. And as you do so, talk about your products, teach us how to do our own makeup, and just have a conversation with us. She's been doing that for like 3 years now. Her company grew, and her following grew, and now she's rocking it. And she tells me, like, I don't do 1 minute of marketing at all, but you and I know she's doing a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's authentic. And I think that's really, and it goes back to what you said, being aligned with the fun and the exciting way of doing things. Instead of doing the same old, you're being your authentic self. And that really, it comes through in the things that she's doing. And I think we can learn some lessons from that, is that being authentic and not fighting against the grain, like you said, helps people understand us and see us for who we really are. And that's truly, it feels like, what people want. They want that, to have the trust with that other person, and they want to have that connection with the other person. And so her being authentic on Facebook Live and doing that sort of thing grew her audience.
Yep. Yeah. And at the end of the day, Mike, there's a lot of, there's a lot of, there's a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of proper ways to doing things. But at the end of the day, we are humans connecting with human beings. Even if you're selling a product, you're selling a product, a human being is selling a product to another human being. And so the more you're able to bring that side of the conversation, which I think, it always happens when there's a technology advancement. And in the last 10, 15 years, it's been all about digital connectivity and moving a lot of the marketing and communications to be mostly digital. So we don't usually are in the same room with each other. And so now I think it's the time, this next generation of technology use, it's the time of, okay, how can we now leverage technology, use it, but how can we bring real humanity back into the equation? And that's what's really working today.
Well, and I think that is awesome because I hear so much. I know you do too. All of us that are on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or all that stuff, you'll always come across that one person that is talking about how social media and all this is the kind of like the downturn of human existence and our communities and all that. But really, I don't see it that way. I see it more of the fact that we're the same people we always have been. It's just being able to leverage that technology to still impact us as social beings, as social storytellers, as people that crave social esteem and social belonging. Being able to harness that in a way using technology is key to everything we do. It's not just throwing as many fishing lines out there hoping you'll catch a fish, but it's actually being thoughtful about how you're using these tools to engage with the same people we have always been. We haven't really evolved inside cognitively or biologically. So being able to use those tools does seem like it's the next step, is trying to figure out, and it seems like you're doing that, but trying to figure out how to leverage technology using what we know about human behavior.
You're going to laugh. So, I'm going to reveal a little bit of my age. I'm actually 46. And I graduated from Argentina, business, marketing, and communications. And in 1996, I wrote my graduating thesis. 1996, there were about 30 people connected to the internet in the whole country. And my graduating thesis, written in Spanish, was called Marketing on the Internet, Relationship Marketing. This is before Amazon, before social media, before all of it.
They should have listened to you.
But here's what I believe back then, and I think the last 20 or so years have only just have simply kind of validated what I thought back then. And my last paragraph was that technology was going to allow us to replicate the experiences we had, let's say in the 1800s, where you lived in a small town, where you interacted with almost the same people constantly, and where you would go to the store and say good morning, and the person would say, hey, would you like to buy another pound of beef this week, because the butcher remembered you from the week before, right? And nowadays, with the data analytics and in big data processing, you can do that. You can go into almost any site and they'll say, hey, welcome back, and this is a suggestion of what you can get or watch or read based on previous choices.
Well, I love that because, I grew up in a small town in Northern California where we knew everybody knew everybody else. You could walk in a store, the person would know you. I love that thought because I've heard it before by, social media influencers and stuff like that is how they're seeing success. It's back to this notion of small group behavior, how human beings are interconnected group type animals, right? We're social beings. And so being able to do that gets us to where those strong feelings, those strong ties are that we had in these smaller communities, because that's how we're built, is to be in community with each other. But now through technology, we can create these communities. So like you and I could have a community with 10 or 12 other people and never see each other in person, but be able to share these ideas and actually benefit from it and gain success from it.
Absolutely. I always joke. So I adore my team. Like my team is like my family now. And I have this woman I've been working with now for 2 years. I have to remind myself that we've never met in person because it feels like we have. We're on Zoom, on camera almost every other day. She reads my mind, I read her mind. We're always collaborating in such an easy, seamless way that obviously leveraged by technology, that I literally have to remind myself that I've never given her a real hug.
Well, but that's the great thing about it, is you may not ever need to, because it's really about that cognitive feeling of connectedness. So if we have that feeling of connectedness, yeah, there's, physical touch has a part in that and all that stuff. But reality is, wow, having that connected cognitive connection is huge. And I think really we can all learn from that story because it shows that just having that strong social bond lets us do so much more as people.
Yeah, exactly. And so, let's talk about, I don't know, I work with different size kind of companies and projects, but one of the things I'm learning is that we small companies, because I'm a service entrepreneur, I have a really successful company, but it's relatively small. One of the things that I've been learning Mike, is that corporations have a lot to learn from us, service entrepreneurs or digital entrepreneurs, you want to call us, kind of underdog kind of entrepreneurs, that we are actually building very successful, profitable companies using technology in a very creative way and leveraging to build very successful, engaged teams in a way that big companies are really struggling to do.
Well, and I kind of think part of that is the company culture or the role people play in that company. The belief system is anchored in different ways of thinking, that when they're at work, when they're working toward company goals, they're doing the behaviors that they feel go with that role. And they're not, and again, it goes back to your idea about these boundaries. It almost seems like in some of these corporations, just the history of the corporation and the belief system of the roles everybody plays, those boundaries are set by that corporation. And now to be able to get outside the box or to use technology a different way or to think a different way or to communicate a different way, you got to expand these boundaries a little bit. Is that what you're seeing?
Yep. Yes, absolutely. I had, I'm not going to give names. I was meeting with the CMO of a company a few years ago, and I was telling him about, they actually produce a product that is used very much by service entrepreneurs and small companies like ours. And he couldn't hear it because he had no idea what I was talking about. And the roles, like I was talking about a concept, the concept of VA, virtual assistant, right? We thrive in getting support with virtual assistants in service entrepreneurship. And this person didn't know that concept. And it's interesting because one of the products that they sell is 100% promoted by virtual assistants, to the point that when I had just hired at the time, I had just hired a VA, and my VA said, well, in order to do the work, you have to use this software. It's free, or up to a certain point, it's free or whatever. And she said, but if you don't use this software, it was some kind of system, right? It's going to be very hard for us to do the work. So now I've had the chance, by coincidence, to be talking to a CMO of that company, and I'm explaining to that person, do you know that I use your software, and that the way I got to know about your software is because my VA required it in order for me to work with her. And his comment was like, what's a VA? And so there's because they were going after B2B and big corporations and seeing us small companies not as a B2B, not as a business. But when you aggregate and the growth that this space is having, we are a force.
Well, yeah. And I look at it so much that the B2B and B2C, where it used to be so different, right? Like you would talk about a customer or talk to a customer way different than you would a business. Now there's so much crossover that we really have to go back to this notion of authentic communication, connections with people, regardless of if you think about it as B2B or B2C. It's really, the strength comes from understanding people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, now I kind of think that with all the stuff you're doing, I've done some research about your company online and things like that, and we're talking so much about people that I really want to get to kind of like what it looks like is the core of some of what you do. and maybe one or two ideas from that on something people listening can take with them to start doing right away to kind of improve that B2B or B2C relationship. But what is this notion of, I mean, we're talking idea, but what's this notion of idea, the capital IDEA, in your business? Is it a methodology or something where there's some things, some key takeaways?
Yeah. So thank you for asking. Absolutely. So I've created a methodology called the IDEA method. And the IDEA method is something that came up, evolved from, we haven't talked about this, but I'm a TEDx organizer. And I've organized for the last 4 years one of the largest events in the East Coast. And that's a volunteer thing that I do that I'm passionate about. And in doing so, working with speakers, getting on my stage and coaching them on the presentations, one of the main questions that you have when you are preparing for a talk of that kind, or a TED Talk, is that, okay, forget the stories, forget the what you want to talk about. I want to understand first what is the core idea that you want the audience to take with them. And then we will talk about how we present that idea, how we present it, what stories we use to convey that idea, right? And so that with time, I started understanding that we companies, we all have a core idea, a core intention, if you want, that is the reason for our existence. So the IDEA method that I've created is helping companies re-anchor themselves with their core idea, and in doing so, then take like a critical look at every single area of the company, their proprietary system, their business model, their packages and services and products, and what I call I don't talk about sales and marketing funnel. I talk about a trust funnel, because it's a consistent process of building trust. So I created the IDEA method, where we explore 5 very, very concrete layers of clarity that our companies need to have, all coming back to the core of the company, which is a core idea, and then aligning every single thing that we do and every single message that we put out, post on social media, product, whatever, but asking ourselves, is this product, is this service, is this marketing campaign 100% aligned with the core idea and core intention of the company? Because as we grow, we kind of forget or kind of move away from anchor, our footing, and coming back to our essence is important over time, so that we don't wake up 10 years later and realize what happened with the reason why we started this company. We built something that we didn't even like. So one of the things that I do with established companies is I run them through the IDEA method at least once or twice a year, and it aids them in the goal setting exercise for the next, whether quarter or year or semester, so that every single action that they're taking in the company fuels and feeds the core idea and core intention of the company.
Well, that sounds really awesome, because what we talk about here on the Crucial Talks podcast all the time is really one of the main core tenets of it is social identity and understanding social groups. And what you're saying basically is, look, coming back to your anchor, or coming back to the essence of why you actually exist, and aligning things to that goes right in line with social identity, because of this notion of a superordinate goal, a goal that kind of precedes the individual or is able to help different groups work together. And it sounds very similar to that, in that by doing that, by using your IDEA method and recentering or re-anchoring, which is an awesome term, by the way, but re-anchoring that corporation with their essence, with why they exist, with why they do what they do. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO, if you're the janitor, or if you're on the sales team, or if you're in marketing, or if you're in accounting. When you do that, it sounds like all those different roles, people can still play those roles the way they are supposed to, but by re-anchoring around that, they are more focused, and everybody in that organization, regardless of the role they play, is moving toward that common goal.
Exactly. And here's a very clear example and maybe a little bit of a takeaway for your audience. I once was talking to a CEO. He leads a 500 people organization. He had just finished a very fancy branding exercise with a consultancy firm. Very expensive, took them months, and they had this like very thick book with all the proper language, right, to talk about the company. And I was like, that's awesome. I said, so tell me one sentence, what do you guys do? And he's like, well, you can read the branding book. And I'm like, no, I don't want to read the branding book. I want you to tell me one sentence. And he couldn't do it. And so I gave him a framework, and together we pulled it out. And I'll give you the framework in just 1 second. But what I said to him, once we had that one sentence that he looked at me, he's like, that's it. That's exactly what we do. So I said, okay, so here's what you do right now. You grab that sentence, very, very brief and succinct. You write it on a Post-it note. You ask your 500 people organization to have that statement on their computer. And every single day, they're either honoring that core idea or they are not. We're never going to be perfect, but every action we are either walking towards it or away from it.
Well, and so I got to ask you this because you told me that story. So he did all this branding stuff first, and then you were able to help him with this framework based around the idea method. So wouldn't it have been better to do that first, then do the branding exercise afterwards?
Well, he would have saved a lot of money, and I don't even know if he would have needed the branding message, the branding exercise, because I could see it was a beautifully produced kind of binder, and maybe they would use it. They would use some of the copy, some ads or flyers here or there, but I couldn't see that binder being actively informing the way they make decisions. Because here's the thing, companies go and do this branding exercise because they think they need it for marketing and communications. But you know what happens if your talk does not equal your walk, right? Then are you going to get anywhere? So I believe that branding is important and clarity in message is critical, but it's not critical because you have to attract the clients. It's critical because your inside the inside of the organization and the outside of the outside market both need to be aligned under the same umbrella message, the same core idea, because you can go be a great sales team, have a great sales team and sell a lot, and then if your team is not fulfilling the service or product, honoring that core idea, now you just sold rainbows. And it's not going to be, loyal customers because you're not necessarily delivering what the sales team promised.
Well, it sounds like they made a really nice looking cake that everybody wanted to take a bite of, but as soon as they did, it didn't taste very good.
It's made of plastic, exactly.
So I know we got to wrap this up. You're busy. I know it's about time to wrap this up, but you've got so much to offer from your experience, and you still run the TEDx, your business that you help people, your consulting, your coaching, but you also do some speaking and stuff like that. I mean, you have so much going on. I know there's people out there that may want to learn more about you, what you do, how you can help them, where they can find more information. So how do they get in touch with you or in touch with your team?
So I think the best way for them to reach out is to come to my website, mastersinclarity.com, MASTERS inclarity.com, mastersinclarity.com. And there you find a lot of resources. We have a blog and videos, and you can also, there's a little button that says start here, and you can literally just reach out and have a conversation with someone in our team and explore ways that we can help you and your organization, clarify your message, re-anchor with your core idea, and and systematically make decisions that are always aligned with the reason for your existence.
Well, that sounds great. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And I just want to kind of follow up at the end here because I think you're being kind of a little bit humble, but I want to let people know that you're not just a coach that just is talking theory, but you started a business that you grew to 6 figures. You started a language school. You've written 2 books. Is that correct? At least 2 books. Yeah. Right? You do TEDx. You have a coaching practice. So it's not just like, I just want everybody to know, it's not just theory. Like, you've actually done it. You do the TEDx thing. So you talk to a lot of different people that are doing it, that are using your ideas. You've done it with corporations. So I just wanted to get it out there that you're being a little bit humble. It kind of sounds like it's just, hey, go to this website, check me out, but you've done a lot. So I just ask people, hey, if you're interested, if you think like any of this will help, which I already know just talking to you it will help, go to mastersinclarity.com. I'll put it in the show notes. And I really wanted to thank you, Doris, for coming on the Crucial Talks podcast. It's been great having you. You have so many great ideas, and your experience and the way you can help people. It really is great the way it fits with everything really we talk about here on the Crucial Talks podcast.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. It's honestly a pleasure meeting you, bringing some value to your audience, and just I grow every time I get to have a conversation with someone that is doing similar work, that has, we share a lot of beliefs, and that I love the generosity of you bringing me out into your audience, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, you're very welcome, because I really do this because I think it can help people. And all of the guests that come on here give us such a gift of this information. I actually had a conversation earlier today where I said, hey, and it's from a song, so it didn't come from me, but really my answer was, hey, if you love it, you give it away. And the more we give it out, the more it comes back to us. So I really...
It's so true. It's so true.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and everybody listening. If you have a chance, please visit me at the Crucial Talks website at www.crucialtalks.com. Feel free to connect with me however you want to. Email, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever works for you if you need anything from me. Also, please share the podcast, leave a review, and rate it, because these conversations with people like Dolores happen all the time, and there's so much value. We really want to share this with as many people as we can. Have a great week. And remember, if we want to understand behavior, we need to understand what drives people.
Please review, share, and subscribe to the Crucial Talks podcast. Visit crucialtalks.com.